communities. I've been in the Detroit area for over 35 years. It's always been an area that has had a strong, vibrant, and diverse community. In the last number of years, we've been at the epicenter of what has been the country's economic woes. There's times that I've driven around our community and you can see plants that are closed, you can see houses that are abandoned or foreclosure signs, you would see factories abandoned, places that were neglected. You could just see the impact within miles of here, not just in Detroit proper, but in our entire surrounding area here.
So it's always hard to kind of tell where the journey started, but I went on a trip to Uganda to reach some of the child soldiers. And on the return trip from that, and after talking with my wife a bit about the experience, we began to question what we were supposed to do with the rest of our lives. We really felt God create sort of a certain burden on our hearts. Somewhere along that path, we ended up being able to define what we felt we were supposed to be about and what God was leading us into.
So it kind of moved from a focus on children to an unreached people group, and how that happened was just different people speaking into our journey and God just expanding our view.
An opportunity unfolded with Rick as we were talking one night, and he shared with me what his family was a part of and the journey that God was taking them on. And I immediately knew when he asked me to consider the idea myself that this is where God really wanted us to go.
My wife and I both are having to walk away from careers we've been a part of. I've served as executive pastor at the church that is partnering with us in this and sending us for the past 17 years. My wife, same thing, very successful. She's a writer and designer at an ad agency, and so she's had to walk away from that.
As the examination and exploration unwound over the next year of time or so, we realized that there could be a role for the church to play in this. So we approached the elders, engaged them. When it was realized that this was going to involve some financing and some considerable financing, then that became a really interesting question. Not a pushback or a harsh issue, but just, I think, questioning the responsibility in our economic climate of trying to launch a team like this and support it to the degree that we were going to support it. I also felt strongly, with no evidence at the time whatsoever about this, that God was going to use this to change us as a church in how everyone viewed not just finances, but really how they viewed ministry. If three couples who were at the height of their earning power, their abilities, their talents, well adjusted to the area, could walk away from all of that and go to a foreign country, setting all those things aside for their faith in Christ and to share those things, what does that mean for the rest of us here? As the mission began to ramp up, we had a number of people commit time, energy. We had a series of home meetings through which we unveiled these things, and so people opened their homes, committed that time and energy. In the final analysis, though, it came down to a financial commitment.
If there's anything that would have stopped us from being obedient in responding to this kind of a leading, it would have been the support raising. We found that intimidating and found it would be difficult to ask people for support. But as we stepped into that and started seeing God bless and bring supporters around us, that just built our faith ultimately in God and affirmed what we were supposed to be a part of.
One of the things that's been fascinating about that, and surprising in some ways, has been that we haven't seen a drop in our general giving or our budget.
You know, I had went online and started setting up to start giving to Dakar, you know, after we had discussed, you know, what we thought we'd be able to handle.
And a few weeks went by and we started noticing that it was being taken out more than we thought it was going to be taken out. But we figured, well, it was the end of the month. Maybe they took it out at the end and then they took it out at the beginning, and we never figured that out. So then after 5 weeks went by and it kept being deducted, we realized, I think we have it set up as weekly. So we checked it on the computer and we realized it was weekly. So then we, talked to the office and they asked, what do you want to do about that? Do you want to just wait another, 5 months for your next pledge? And we said, well, let's talk about it and see what we want to do. So we talked about it. I think it came down to the fact that The money had been deducted every week for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and we didn't miss it in any way. We didn't even know it was being taken out. So we figured if we don't miss it for the last 5 weeks, we're not going to miss it for the next 5 years.
In these current economic times in Detroit, any extra giving at all could be considered generous giving. Families are facing very tight situations, but we didn't have any real push to raise money. People just stepped up and quietly committed for the next 5 years to support this Dakar team.
That, considering everything else surrounding our area, at any time would be a story, but particularly considering this coming out of an area like Detroit and our circumstances here and now. One of the things that's been fascinating about that, we had a significant amount of funds raised that would have been probably over 10% of our annual budget.
As we walked through this journey with these families preparing to go to Africa, and we saw them give up their earthly possessions and their families, we realized that they're not the only ones who have a call in their lives. We are hearing God call all of us to serve our community.
One of the key ways that this has changed outside of RockPointe itself, I think, is that people are looking at the whole area differently and seeing it as a mission field. There's been a strong linkage as we talk through this, even the similarity of just Dakar and Detroit. We have the largest Muslim community outside the Arab countries within our reach here as a community.
They began to get caught by that idea and began to look for people around them who had never heard and say, hey, wait a minute, is there an unreached people group in our backyard?
So people have been reviewing Detroit itself and the entire metro area and the Muslim community in our area in a way that prior to, I don't think we'd even been conscious of or would have looked at as closely. For the longest time, I have wanted everyone to share ministry instead of just investing in a professional class. We've done better than that than most churches have done. This has taken us way beyond that, though, because in these people making their choices and their sacrifices, stepping out like they have at the prime of their career track, everyone's had to face that and deal with that and say, why would they do that? And if they're doing that because God's calling them, what does that mean for me? And that's just changed everyone's approach to how they look at life, this whole area. I think it's being poured back into the entire city of Detroit by this effort. We have made the most significant contribution to global missions that we've ever done as a church. The interesting thing is the impact that has had, though, on us as a church. And not just on us as a church, but on how everyone views their mission here in the Detroit area. This launch has had more impact locally and within us as a people than it has yet to have overseas.